Hello everyone, I welcome you all for the 5th edition of the 5 editorials of the week series. In this initiative, we will be identifying the 5 important and most relevant editorials for the UPSC mains preparation, and we will be discussing those editorials in details, and we will be providing you the notes. So this is the 5th edition of the video series. Let us go into the video. So today we are going to discuss 5 editorials. So first editorial is about the conflict which is existing between the LG of the Delhi and the Chief Minister of Delhi. Second editorial is about the India and Nepal's recent border dispute. And third editorial is about the improving Russia-China ties and the issues with respect to India, the triangular relationship. Fourth one is about the recent announcement of the Prime Minister to reduce the marriage age of the women. And the fifth article is about how COVID-19 has created a differential impact among the various castes of the society. So let us go into the video. So the first editorial for the day is about the jurisdictional conflict that is going on between the Lieutenant Governor of Delhi and the Chief Minister of Delhi. So this article is written by P.D. Thangapan Achari. So Thangapan Achari was the former Secretariat General of Lok Sabha. So one of the topmost bureaucrat is writing about the conflict between the Lieutenant Governor of Delhi and Chief Minister of Delhi. So we all know ever since 2015 there is a constant conflict between the Chief Minister of Delhi and Lieutenant Governor of Delhi about who is having the ultimate executive authority over the administration. This issue was also referred to Supreme Court, and in Supreme Court also gave judgment in 2018 in favor of Delhi CM. So that is what the case is. But now recently the LG has breached the judgment and acted against the judgment given in 2018. So that issue has led to the all crisis. So what happened recently? We all know that in February 2020 there was an horrific riots going on in the northeast Delhi. So in that case pertaining to that riot is going on in the Delhi High Court. So whenever a case is going on in Delhi High Court, the Chief Minister is having the power to appoint the public prosecutor. So who is the public prosecutor? Public prosecutor is a lawyer who will be representing the government in the case which is going on in High Court. It is the sole authority of the Chief Minister to appoint the public prosecutor, and it is an administrative decision of Chief Minister. So for this case with respect to Delhi riots, when Arvind Kejriwal government appointed the public prosecutors for the case, Lieutenant Governor objected it, and he referred that issue to President by citing the Article 239 AA Clause 4 of the Constitution. So let us see about this article later. He was citing the provisions of this article and referred that issue to the President, and he stayed it. So what he did, he appointed those public prosecutors who are suggested by Delhi police. We all know that people are accusing Delhi police for the Delhi riots. So the Delhi police also had a role to play with respect to Delhi riots. So Delhi police also is under the scanner now. When Delhi police is ultimately controlled by Union government and Ministry of Home Affairs, not by the Chief Minister of Delhi. That is one thing which you have to note. So Delhi police also involved. So when Delhi police is also involved, how can we appoint a public prosecutor based on the recommendation of Delhi police instead of the Chief Minister? So that is what the main issue is. By rejecting the list given by the Chief Minister and appointing those persons suggested by Delhi police, Lieutenant Governor has again breached the 2018 judgment of Supreme Court, which gave prominence to Chief Minister. So that is what the ultimate issue which took place recently and created the problem. So this author starting the article by citing the judgment of 2018. In 2018 judgment, what the Supreme Court said? Supreme Court upheld the Delhi CM's autonomy. So Supreme Court upheld the Delhi CM's autonomy and said that Lieutenant Governor of Delhi should act upon the aid and advice of the CM. Always he should act upon the aid and advice of the CM in all matters in the state list. So we know state list, concurrent list as per 7th schedule. In all matters in the state list and concurrent list, except land, police and public order. Land, police and public order are under the control of Union government under Ministry of Home Affairs. So except these three areas, all the areas in the state list and concurrent list, the Lieutenant Governor should act upon the aid and advice, and he should not be interfering on the day-to-day administrative activities. That was this judgment, and it was very clear. Since Chief Minister is appointed by the people and they are represented by the people, the public representatives should have the higher voice and not the Lieutenant Governor who is appointed by the central government. So that is what the meaning of the judgment was. And there was also this contentious article called Article 2 for 33 AA4. So this article is the main reason for the issue between the LG and CM. So whenever there is a conflict of opinion, whenever there is a difference of opinion between LG and CM, that LG can refer that issue to President. So what that article says, this article clearly states that whenever there is a difference of opinion between Lieutenant Governor and his ministers on any matter, the Lieutenant Governor shall refer it to President of India for the decision and act according to the decision. So he should refer that conflicting thing to President and act according to the advice of the President. Now let us go to President. President of India acts upon the advice of whom? President of India acts upon the advice of Council of Ministers of Union Government, which is ultimately Minister of Home Affairs. So President of India is anyway going to act upon the advice of the Home Affairs. This Lieutenant Governor is also appointed indeed by the Home Affairs. So indirectly, by using Article 239 AA Clause 4, Ministry of Home Affairs can easily override the powers of the Chief Ministers of Delhi, or Lieutenant Governor can easily talk to Ministry of Home Affairs and he can override any decision taken by the Chief Minister of Delhi, and at the end of the day Chief Minister will become powerless because of this misuse of Article 239. So that's why the case went to Supreme Court in 2018, and in 2018 judgment Supreme Court clearly stated that where the Article 239 can be used. It stated that it cannot be used in every matter. What it stated that the word any matter in the judgment does not mean every matter. So it doesn't mean that for each and every matter the LG can refer it to President. Instead it said that it is just an exception and it is not a rule, which means that only in the exceptional circumstances the LG can refer the matter to President, not on the day-to-day activities. On the day-to-day administration, everything the LG should act upon the aid and advice of the Chief Minister, and he should not refer it to President. Only on the exceptional circumstances the LG can refer. That is what the judgment says. And also the judgment stated that what is that exceptional circumstances? The exceptional circumstances are those whenever the order of the CM is against the constitutional morality or collaborative federalism or constitutional balance, then LG can refer that matter to President. So it clearly states that only with respect to the constitutional issues the LG can refer the matter to President and not on the day-to-day activities. So that the terminology used in the judgments are constitutional morality, collaborative federalism and constitutional balance. Only in these conditions the LG can refer to President. So the judgment also talked about that only Parliament of India is having the power to legislate on the state list and concurrent list, and even though the Parliament has passing the law, that law can be implemented. So what is the role of executive? The role of executive is implement the law passed by the legislature. So we are having a Delhi Legislative Assembly. Any law passed by Delhi Legislative Assembly will be implemented by Delhi CM and Delhi Council of Ministers. And who is having the power to override the Delhi Legislative Assembly? It is Parliament of India, because that is the supreme legislature, because it is a union territory. So Parliament of India can make a law in state list and concurrent list. Even though Parliament makes law, union government cannot come and interfere. Only that law also only Delhi government can implement. So that law can be implemented only by the Delhi government and not by the union government. So only Delhi government is having the sole executive authority in the national capital region of Delhi in all issues except the land, police and public order. So that is what the judgment says. The ultimate executive authority in the Delhi is under the control of Chief Minister except on land, public order and police, not the Lieutenant Governor or Union Government. So it also reiterates the same thing. Now, by interfering in the appointment of public prosecutor, the LG has violated the judgment. The appointment of public prosecutor is the sole representative of the Delhi government, and Union government through LG cannot interfere in that issue at all. So that is the main issue now. So what is the conclusion the author is telling? The Council of Ministers are representative of people. So the Delhi government is representative of people, and the LG is the representative of President of India. So what the role of the Lieutenant Governor must be is to act as a facilitator. The Lieutenant Governor should always act as a facilitator and function in harmony with the constitutional parameters, and he should not interfere in the day-to-day activities of the Delhi government, and he should uphold the 2018 Supreme Court decision. So that is what the author is telling, and this judgment and this thing also applicable to Pondicherry, because in Pondicherry also there is a severe conflict between the LG and Chief Minister, and LG is interfering on all the matters decision taken by the Chief Minister. So this applies even to the Pondicherry also. So LG and CM should work together in harmony, and LG should act as a facilitator to mainly uphold the constitutional parameters and not to interfere in the day-to-day activities. That is what this article talks about at the end. So the second editorial for the day is about the India-Nepal border dispute. Time for India and Nepal to make up. So this article is written by Kanakmani Dixit. Kanakmani Dixit is a writer and a journalist from Kathmandu. So this writer is talking about the Nepal's perspective with respect to the India-Nepal border dispute. So we have already discussed in detail about the India-Nepal border dispute and Kalapani crisis in a video where I explained the map and the Kali River or Sarda River, Treaty of Sagoli, everything. You please see that video also after watching this video. And only if you see that video, you will have a clear understanding of whatever we are going to discuss in this editorial. It is okay even if you see that video after seeing this. So actually this border dispute erupted in May when the Nepal released a new map claiming the entire Kalapani territory and Limpiadura territory, and they also amended the constitution to legalize their claim. So this led to the recent border dispute. See, India and Nepal are two important, very close nations, and they are one of the trendsetters with respect to the relationship in South Asia. See, India and Nepal are one of the closest nation in the South Asia region, and they are having one of the exemplary track record of interstate relationship in South Asia, and hence the de-escalation must happen as soon as possible, and the dispute should be solved amicably between the India and Nepal. So that is what the author is. In this article, author tries to talk about the Nepal's perspective. So the first logic which the author is telling is that since what India is claiming is that ever since 1948 this Kalapani region is under India's possession, and after this 1962 war India got even the military presence in that region. Since India is having the military presence in that region, that territory belongs to India. This is one of the claim of India. But what the author is claiming is that the same thing is happening with respect to Aksai Chin. In this Aksai Chin region, China is holding this Aksai Chin region since 1962, and they are also having the military presence there. That doesn't mean that Aksai Chin belongs to China, because it always belongs to India. So just because a nation is holding a territory for so long doesn't mean that it belongs to them. So logic of possession will not apply here. That is what the counter claim the author is telling. So India should find some other logics to substantiate their claim with respect to Kalapani, like using the Treaty of Sagoli. The second claim which India is telling is that Nepal is silent for too long. Nepal is silent for too long, and Nepal hasn't added this Kalapani territory to their maps till 2020. Only in 2020 May they added this region in their map, and before that they have never added it, and they have never objected to this, and they have never raised it in a mass public scale like it happened after May 2020. So that is what India is claiming. But for that, author is telling is that ever since 1980s, whenever the bilateral talks is going on between India and Nepal always used to bring in this border dispute to the table. So Nepal has never kept that issue outside the table. Always they used to bring that issue into the table, and Nepal decided to go on with a quiet diplomacy. What Nepal considered was India and Nepal are close friends. India is helping Nepal in so many ways. So let us follow quiet diplomacy, and that's what Nepal for it. So following quiet diplomacy doesn't mean that Nepal is losing the territory. At the same time, so ever since 1990s when Nepal got this democracy, Nepal is objecting the India's occupation of Kalapani, and Nepal is claiming it. So never Nepal has left this issue of the table. So that is the second claim. The third claim is that India is telling this Nepal is acting in the advice of China, or Nepal is acting in the behest of China. But that is not true. Nepal is also objecting China's ambition in that region also. Even China is planning to occupy that Lipulek Pass because it is strategically important to counter India. China, what Nepal is telling, they are also countering China also with respect to Kalapani territory. So that is the third claim which they are telling. Now the author talks about the evolution of the border dispute. In 1997, when I.K. Gujral was the Prime Minister, the border demarcation process was finalized. In that border demarcation also, 98% of the border, which is almost 1751 km, was decided, except the Kali River region, which is being disputed. So except this region, all the other region is demarcated, which means that there is a dispute going on even at the time of I.K. Gujral. So that is the first claim which they are telling. Second, in 2014, when Indian Prime Minister and Prime Minister Sushil Koirala of Nepal met, they both decided to form a border working group. Okay, in 2014 they decided to form a border working group to solve this issue, but that border working group never picked up, and they couldn't finalize the deal. So that also proves that that issue is being there in the table. And in 2019 also, Foreign Secretary level discussion was going on to solve this Kalapani territory dispute. So that was on progress. Indian Foreign Secretary and Nepal Foreign Secretary are discussing on that issue, and the talk were in progress. So at that time only, India abrogated Article 370 and released the new map of J&K. When they released this new map, they demarcate this entire Kalapani region as within the India's mark. So that was objected by Nepal even in the November 2019 itself. Nepal objected it, but never Nepal raised it as a diplomatic crisis, and Nepal was still having discussion at the Foreign Secretary level, and they were addressing it. So what led to the trigger of Nepal is that when India inaugurated a road, India inaugurated a Lipulek road project. So inauguration of Lipulek road project in May, that led to the actual alarm in the Nepal, and that led to the present dispute. Since India, even after this Nepal being so quiet and they were discussing the Kalapani dispute on table, without respecting that, India inaugurated the road. So that is what has triggered the Nepal. So that is what the Nepal Prime Minister is claiming. That led to the constitutional amendment in order to strengthen the cause of Nepal. If they are having that region in their map, that will strengthen their cause. So that's why they amended in 2020. And one main reason for the failure of the talk is that absence of back channel diplomacy. Whenever there is a dispute coming between India and Nepal, there is always a back channel diplomacy. Back channel diplomacy means main diplomacy is always between the nations. That is the head of the nation, PM, Prime Minister, or Foreign Minister, or the next level is Foreign Secretary. This is the official level meeting. Back channel meeting is unofficially businessmen meeting, and civil society organizations or NGOs between the two nations talking on behalf. Like that, back channel meetings were there. Through this back channel meeting, they used to revive the relationship back. So this was done in 2015 blockade also. But that black channel diplomacy is absent now. That is creating the problem. So what is the way forward now? As soon as possible, both the nations should de-escalate that entire issue, and status quo should be maintained in that region. And they should discuss this dispute on the table. Both should come to table and discuss this dispute, and they have to solve this. One better way to solve is that both the nation withdrawing from that region. Both the nations should withdraw from the region, and they should announce this region as zone of peace and pilgrimage. So this should be announced as zone of peace and pilgrimage, and citizens of both the nations should access this in order to reach the Kailash Manasarovar Lake, because the Lipulek Pass is one of the route to reach the Kailash Manasarovar Lake, and hence this region should be announced as a zone of peace and pilgrimage, and it should be demilitarized, and both the military should recede from that region, and it should be declared as a common zone of peace. So this is what the way forward the author is suggesting. Please see that video which I have done with respect to border dispute to understand this dispute clearly. The third article is about the China-Russia's relationship and how India should plan its foreign policy amidst the growing closeness of Russia and China. So this article is written by our former Foreign Secretary, Mr. Vijay Gokhale. Vijay Gokhale was a senior most IFS officer, and he was our Foreign Secretary, and he is talking about India's foreign policy. So that's why this article is a very important article, because he analyzes the Russia-China relationship, which is very important now, because India is having its own issues with respect to Russia and China and also the USA. So this article is very important. So this article is relevant in GS paper 2, where we are having international relations. In international relations, there is a topic called bilateral grouping affecting India's interests. So this is a bilateral grouping between China and Russia, which is affecting the India's interests. So we have to study this article. The basic premise is that a proper analysis of partnership between Russia and China is critical to India's foreign policy. So the author starts by quoting the three important pillars of Sino-Russian ties. So ever since the disintegration of USSR in 1990, the ties between the China and Russia has increased, and the three important pillars are peaceful boundary. So they both solved their border dispute and strengthen their relationship, and there is an expanding trade between the two. So ever since the disintegration of USSR, there has been an expanding trade between the Russia and China, and it has almost doubled ever since the sanctions imposed on Russia in 2014. So this trade is very high, and it is a major pillar. And third one is shared anti-American intentions. Even Russia is having the anti-American intention, anti-West intention, and China is also having. Since they are all having the shared interest, they came together. Edri Kedri Nanban. So that formula worked out here. So these are all the three important pillars which is being building in the Sino-Russian relationship. The next point is about the why Russia got weakened and why it got pulled to China. The one main reason is the disintegration of USSR. After the disintegration of USSR, the Russia which succeeded USSR is not strong enough when compared to its predecessor. And after the disintegration of USSR, the Cold War ended and the world became a unipolar one, where USA emerged as a sole leader. So, and USA now what is it is aiming? It doesn't want the USSR successor Russia to rise again and become and to reach the stature of USSR and to challenge USA. So it decided to impose various sanctions with the help of its Western partners. So one of the serious sanction imposed was post the 2014 Russia's annexation of Crimea. So Russia annexed the Crimean peninsula from Ukraine without the Ukraine's consent. So that led to the global sanctions against the Russia. So after that sanctions, Russia was becoming helpless, and a lot of European nations decided not to buy the oil from Russia or not to import the natural gas from Russia. Since Russia's entire major part of the economy is dependent on oil and natural gas, when European nation decided not to buy from Russia, the Russian economy suffered. So at that time, China came. So China came and ordered a largest order ever in the history, that is $400 billion deal for 30 years for the supply of oil and gas from Russia. So this US-led sanction against the Russia further brought Russia closer to China. So this thing, so at one side we are having a unipolar world without a challenger to USA, and on other side Russia is becoming dependent on China. So this has further strengthened the China's posture. Even though both the USA and EU are not having any intentions to strengthen China, but their sanction on Russia is indirectly strengthening China, because Russia is now dependent on China and China is becoming strengthening. So how China is strengthening, let us see now. The trade doubled post the sanctions. So that is after the invocation of sanction, trade increased to $1.8 billion, which almost doubled prior to 2014 levels. Russia increased the Chinese currency reserves and increased the Chinese imports a lot. So that is one thing. And they also started to take coordinated actions in the forums, various forums like UNFCCC and UNSC, United Nations Security Council. In all these areas, both the nations are having veto power. Both Russia and China are having veto power, and they both started to take coordinated actions and taking the same stand. That is against the USA. So that was their posture. And they also conducted a lot of highly sophisticated joint military exercise, and they also tried to develop close relationship with Iran. Iran is another common enemy of all the three. So China, Russia and Iran are forming an alliance against the USA. So all these things increased the two things. It increased the Russia-China relationship. At the same time, it is also strengthening the China. So that is the outcome. Now one thing we have to analyze from this. In this Russia-China relationship, who is the stronger one? Before disintegration of USSR was a stronger opponent to USA. But now in this relationship, China is becoming a stronger partner in the China-Russia relationship, and China is dominating Russia in that relationship. Let us see how. So we saw that there was a peaceful boundary between the two, and the boundary disputes are solved. But still now, again in various quarters of China, they have started to talk about the historical grievances. That is, in 19th century, the Tsar regime in Russia, they illegally occupied a lot of the tract from northern China. Since they occupied these tracts from northern China, people, and they made it part of the Russia, people in China are now asking the Chinese government to take back the land. So that is one thing which might again trigger the border dispute, because those people who are talking to take back this land are having a lot of power in the Chinese government. Another side is many Chinese people went and settled in the far east of Russia. Far east means eastern part of Russia. Okay, many people went and settled there. Since Chinese population is increasing in the far eastern side of Russia, that might also lead to the border dispute now, because China is already increasing its ambitious expansionist border policy that might extend to Russia also. So that is one threat. Another threat is expanding trade. Even though the trade is expanding, there is a severe trade imbalance. So now in the trade between the Russia and China, Russia is having the surplus. But if you could note the trade in detail, if you could see, Russia is just exporting the raw materials in the form of oil and natural gas, and in turn they are importing finished goods. Okay, these finished goods over the period of time are becoming more technology oriented ones. Since the goods are technology oriented ones, they might turn costly in the future. If they are turning costly in the future, and they are also increasing over the period of time, so they might turn costly in the future, and they are increasing, and hence this trade surplus will shift in the favor of China. If it is shifting in the favor of China, that might strategically provide China a dominant role with respect to economic ties, like China is experiencing with India. Now we are having the trade deficit with China, and China is having the trade surplus. That's why the Chinese trade is always a threat to us. The similar thing might happen with respect to Russia also in future. So that is one threat. Another threat, shared anti-American sentiment. See, there is a triangular relationship between USA, China and Russia. If you could see, USA and China are having conflicts, USA and Russia are having conflicts, so their relationship is getting strengthened. But if you could see in zoom, USA is still a dominant force, and USA is still having a lot of say in the global politics, and they are imposing a powerful sanctions. If the sanctions imposed by USA are so powerful that no other nation can deny it, because everyone are dependent on USA for that. So in order to avoid sanction, both China and Russia are trying subtly to solve their disputes. If you could see, they are just hoping to repair their ties. So even though they are both antagonizing, at the end of the day they are trying to repair the ties with USA. So this cannot be a persistent thing. So that is another threat for their disputes. And from these three instances, it is clear that the relationship between the China and Russia is more Chinese dominated, and Russia is no more a global superpower. So if you could note here closely, earlier it was USA-USSR Cold War. Then after this 1991 disintegration, USA became the dominant force in the world affairs. Now slowly the Cold War is emerging between USA and China. So again the world was bipolar then. So two nations were dominating. Then it became unipolar. Then the world became multipolar. See, after 2000 onwards, the world became multipolar because major nations started to prove their dominance. Now slowly again world is going towards this bipolarity of USA and China. This increasing bipolarity between USA and China is not liked even by USA or European Union and Russia itself. Russia itself is not happy with this dominance of China. So India should use this area. So now what India should do? India should build a strategic partnership without conflict of interest. There should not be any conflict of interest between their relationship. So India should not do anything which is against Russia, and they should build the strategic partnership and aim at multipolar world. Okay, India and Russia together, they should aim at multipolar world, because the increasing dominance of China is slowly taking the world towards the bipolarity. So it should not be bipolar, it should be multipolar. So that is what the way forward is for this article. So the thing which you have to note is only the fourth point. The fourth point is very important, and all the three points is just for understanding. We can quote it if the question is asked. So the next editorial is about the marriage age misconception. So this editorial is written by Mary John. She is from Center for Women Development Studies. So in this editorial, she is talking against the argument of increasing the age of the marriage to address the issue of malnutrition. So this issue is relevant in GS paper 1. In GS paper 1, we are having a topic called role of women and women's organizations and issues associated with it. So it is directly related to women there. And also in paper 2, we are also having a topic called issues faced by vulnerable sections of society and the steps taken by the government for them. So it is relevant in paper 2 also. Recently, Honorable Prime Minister of India, in his Independence Day speech, he talked about the reviewing the age of marriage for women based on the recommendations given by the Jaya Jetli Task Force. So Jaya Jetli Task Force was constituted mainly to control the MMR and to improve the nutrition of women. But what she found was early marriage and early pregnancy is one of the important reasons for malnutrition in the women, and that is also leading to the maternal mortality. So if you increase the age of the marriage, then this issue can be addressed. So this was the argument. So this argument is based on the study by the Lancet Child and Adolescent Health, which stated that child born to the adolescent mother of 10 to 19 years of age were 5 percentage points more likely to be stunted than those born to the normal parents of 20 to 24 years of age. And the children born to the adolescent mothers are also had 10 percentage points higher prevalence of wasting than compared to the normal parents. So based on this report only, they are arguing that we have to increase the age. But this article is arguing against it. Instead of tackling the root cause for malnutrition, we are just addressing the side causes. This marriage age is not the main cause. The main cause for the early pregnancy is poverty. The main cause for the lack of education for women is poverty. The main cause of malnutrition is poverty. And why maternal mortality is happening? It is happening because of malnutrition and inaccessibility to institutional delivery. So all these things are caused mainly by poverty. So addressing the poverty will be the root cause. So hit on that instead of just going behind the marriage age, which is just a remote issue. So that is what the author is arguing. Poverty plays a major role that leads to malnourishment of the mother and children. So address that issue first. One of the argument given by the Jaya Jetli Task Force is that early pregnancy might also hinder the education of the women. So education of the women is hindered, and hence the empowerment of women is also hindered, and that's why we have to increase the age. But the counter argument is that early marriage and early pregnancy and low education and malnutrition all are mainly due to poverty. Just because the women are in poverty and they are poor. That's why they are marrying off at the early age. Okay, that is acting as a sense of security for the woman and shying away from the responsibility of parenting by the parents. So early marriage and early pregnancies itself is because of the poverty. And age is having a real significance only if the pregnancy is post 25. Majority of the women in India are bearing their child between the age of 20 to 25. Those who are bearing their first child above 25 is very less. Even though if you are increasing the marriage age to 21, they are going to have the child between 21 to 25 only, and that is not going to really help to reduce the MMR. According to the research, the age will play a role only if the pregnancy is above 25. Anything below 25 is not going to give any real significance. So that is what the research says. Then there is another argument that overpopulation. If there is early pregnancy, if people are getting pregnant earlier at the age of 18 or at the age of 17, their fertility time is increasing. So they might have more children. Since they are getting pregnant early, they might have more children because they are having a larger fertility time. So that is leading to overpopulation. That is one of the main argument. But if you could note closely, India's fertility rates are already declining. Many states have already gone below the total replacement level of 2.1. India's fertility rate is almost at 2.2. Within some 2 decades, we will be reaching the total replacement rate, and within 2050 and 2070, we will be going below 2. So if that is the case, this increasing the marriage age to control population is a futile argument again. So this overpopulation argument also cannot be brought in now, because India's population is already falling, which we already discussed in the earlier video also. In the last video of 5 editorials of the series, we discussed about this. So by just increasing the age, we are going to criminalize a lot of families, because adopting to the new age will take a lot of time. A lot of family will be criminalized, and it takes away the legal protection. And if you note, in India, even though the marriage is happening after the age of 18, that cannot be criminally persecuted, because 18 is the age of consent. Anyhow, these people are not going to follow law, and they might be what they will be doing. They might be marrying off at the age of 20 or 19 itself. If such marriages are happening and they will not be legally registered, if these marriages are not legally registered, the marriage would have happened in the reality, but they wouldn't have been registered. So if that is the case, these girls who are getting married, we cannot be legally protected. They will not get any benefits of the marriage, or they will not get any benefits of the Divorce Act. So that is the reality now. So we are going to make these girls vulnerable, and we are going to criminalize their families unwantedly. So we are having this age of consent as 18 in India. So in India, if a woman or man attains the age of 18, that is the age of consent. And globally also 18 is accepted as the age of consent, and this is the age for marriage globally. Then why India should have an age of 21? So that is a very big question. So what this author is suggesting at finally is that instead of going and changing the age, so changing the age is one thing, but that is not going to really help. If you are changing the age, well, and if we are changing the age, well and good, but it is not going to really help. The real thing which is going to really help to reduce the MMR is poverty alleviation. So alleviate poverty, increase the access to reproductive health information. So women should be getting the information regarding safe sex and reproductive health. At the same time, we have to improve the women education by reducing the dropouts and increasing the enrollment. And government should launch the nutritional programs. Already we are having a lot of nutritional program for girls and other mothers, like Pradhan Mantri Mantru Vanjana Yojana, or integrated child protection, integrated child development schemes, or we are having midday meal schemes. In all these schemes, girls and women are getting benefited. We also launched this Poshan Abhiyan. So that such kind of schemes should be strengthened instead of just focusing on increasing in age. So that is what the argument given by the author. So the last editorial for the day is about the differential impact of COVID-19 and the lockdown. So this article talks about the how badly the disadvantaged classes, that is the SCs and STs, are impacted because of this COVID-19 and the lockdown when compared to the upper classes or the dominant classes. So this article is written by Ashwini Deshpande and Rajesh Ramachandran, and they are university professors. So they are starting the editorial by quoting an instance from the book. So that book is written by Walter Scheidel, the Great Leveler. So in this book, the author argues that throughout the history, if we take an analyze, 4 types of catastrophic events have led to greater economic equality. So these kind of catastrophic events are pandemics, wars, revolutions, and state collapse. So whenever such events happens, it has led to the economic equality. So that is the argument of Walter Scheidel. But if you could note this current pandemic which is going on now, it is the opposite case. This COVID-19 pandemic has not become an economic leveler because now itself we can see already existing disparities in the economy and the society because of the caste differences and the religious differences are further worsened by this COVID. So already there is a huge gap between the SC/STs and the upper caste, and this gap is further widened because of this COVID-19 lockdown. So that is what the author is arguing. So the incidence of disease is not class neutral. So if you could see who are getting affected, that is also is not class neutral. Poorer and economically vulnerable populations who are low wage earners and low educated and racial and ethnic minorities. So all these peoples are vulnerable sections of the society. So all these peoples are more likely to contract this disease and die. So that is what the data which is being collected from all over the world is suggesting. So if you could see in the syllabus in GS paper 2, we are having the vulnerable sections of the society and the issues faced by them. So it is directly relevant to GS 2, and also we are having this topic called poverty in GS paper 1, GS paper 2 and GS paper 3. In all the three papers we are having poverty. In paper 1 it is political aspect, in paper 1 it is social aspects of poverty, in paper 2 it is political aspect of poverty, in paper 3 it is economic aspect of poverty. So this topic is relevant to all the three papers in the syllabus. So if you could note, poor and economically vulnerable populations are more vulnerable to contact and die than the other population. So that is the first argument which they are giving. The second argument which they are arguing is the fall in employment. Because of this COVID-19, there is a huge fall in employment levels. Though this fall in employment is higher among the SCs and STs. So this fall in employment is at 20% with respect to STs and 15% with respect to SCs. For other backward classes, it is almost 14%. But if you could see for the upper caste or the dominant caste, it is just 7%. In this editorial, they would have used this word called upper caste and lower caste. So instead of using this word, whenever we are writing the answer, we can use the different words. So instead of using upper caste, we can use this word called privileged caste or dominant caste. We can use these words. For lower caste, we can use the oppressed caste. So such words we can use, because even in the words we cannot call them upper or lower. So that is what I am like to stress here. So this is my point which I am adding here. So we'll use this word called privileged caste and dominant caste and oppressed caste whenever we are writing the answer. So this is the levels with respect to unemployment. Unemployment level is high with respect to SCs and STs. So according to Center for Monitoring Indian Economy. So this is again a private NGO which is doing the economic calculations and statistics. The job losses, if you could see the job loss data further, the job losses is more among the people with low levels of education and those who are in vulnerable jobs. So those who are daily wage earners. So daily wage earners or migrant workers. We saw this migrant worker crisis. So they also replace these migrant workers with the guest workers. So we are also using the word called guest workers to denote instead of calling them migrants. So that is one thing. People who are in vulnerable jobs and low levels of education are more likely to lose the jobs than those people who are having good levels, 2 to 12 years of education and in salaried class. So that is another finding which they are giving in this editorial. So if you could note this editorial, we all know that this COVID-19 is going to impact a lot on these vulnerable people. We all know that. That is a basic common sense. But in this editorial, they are giving the facts to substantiate it. When we are writing mains answer, we all know this thing, that it is going to affect them a lot. But when we are substantiating with the fact, our answers are getting authentic. So that's why I ask you to note down all these facts given in this editorial. We can write these facts not only with respect to the answers with respect to COVID-19. We can quote it with respect to poverty. If any question which comes with respect to poverty, we can quote it. We can show the vulnerability of such sections. We can quote it in the essays when we are writing with respect to the social disparities or all those things. We can write we can quote this in the answers which is asking for reservations also. We can substantiate the reservations by using this box. According to the India Human Development Survey, what they are telling, see, job losses is more among people who are having low levels of education. Now let us go back to this India Human Development Survey and see who is having the low levels of education. So if you could see another data which talks about the 0 years of schooling, the people belonging to scheduled caste, they are having more number of women. That is 51% of the women in SC families are not having any even single year of schooling, and 27% of men are not having the even single year of schooling. But if we could compare the same with respect to the UCs, that is the dominant caste or privileged caste, if we can see that it is only 11% and 24%. See the disparity. It is almost 4 times here, it is almost equal with respect to men, but with respect to women, it is almost 4 times. So SC women are more vulnerable. Already they are vulnerable because they are women. Women are oppressed. Now SC women are facing the double problem of double levels of oppression. Okay, so one because of caste, another because of gender. So that is another thing. We are seeing that job losses are high with the families with a low education level, and this low education level is high among the SC families. So that is the another fact which the editorial is quoting. Now, because of COVID-19, we are going to home learning and online education. So uneducation levels of the parents are so high now, so they cannot help their kids. So what this is happening, already in 2001 data itself, there is this much disparity. Now COVID-19 has already disrupted the education now. So with this condition, the education gap is further going to widen. So this is just going to widen because of COVID-19. So that is what the author is telling. The distress is further worsened by pre-existing structures of disadvantage. So here COVID-19 is going to further worsen this distance. And another thing is that internet access. Now online education is increasing. The internet access for dominant caste is 20%, but for SCs it is just 10%. And if you could see savings bank accounts, upper caste are having 62% of upper caste people are having bank accounts, but only 49% of the SCs are having bank accounts. So this also clearly says that now the people belonging to the oppressed communities cannot easily go and buy mobile phones, or they cannot go and easily buy all the laptops needed for their kids for online education. So that is another disparity. So online education is going to be denied for one major group of people because of lack of internet access and savings account, and already existing disparities are going to widen because of this COVID-19. So we know all these issues, but we have got facts to write in their answer for substantiation. So what we can do, we can draw a graph in examination. In this question, we can draw two graphs. Like for example, for UCs it is 62%, for SCs it is 49%. Like this we can draw a graph. For mobile access it is 20% for UC and 10% for SC. Such kind of histograms we can draw in the mains answer. So if you are drawing such histograms, then we can get more marks. So we have to convert this fact into graphs like this and write in mains answer. So that is what the point I am like to stress here. And finally, hence, what government should do now? Government should now invest in closing their gaps. Hence, the gaps must be closed by proper investments in health and education with unhindered affirmative action. So, affirmative action means reservation. So, these instances clearly proves the need for reservation. People used to ask, people are questioning the necessity for reservation and the logic of reservation. These facts are more than enough to substantiate why reservation is needed for the oppressed classes. So, these facts can be used with respect to the answers where we are writing for reservations also. So, that is another thing which I would like to add with this editorial. So note down these points, note down this graph file for your mains answer writing. Thank you everyone. We have come to the end of the 5 editorials of this week. So today we discussed 5 important editorials. Please note down all the points and revise it. Only if you revise it, then only this initiative will be most effective. So revise it at the end of each month. Revision is very important. Thank you. Next week we'll meet with another 5 articles.